summit where a convergence of visionaries and change agents igniting global transformation. Through collective innovation, we embark on a journey to conquer challenges, spark inspiration, and pave the way for a radiant tomorrow. A shared endeavor shaping the future we envision. Yes, today, we have with us Dr. Taddeo Rusoke, is a Ugandan Global Platinum Award-winning sustainability scientist, research fellow, and executive director at Wildlife Clubs of Uganda. He possesses 14 years of experience in the conservation and higher education sector. He is a visiting research fellow and fellows coordinator at the African Wildlife Economy Institute of Stellenbosch University, South Africa, and a visiting research fellow at the University of Pretoria Mammal Research Institute. Dr. Rusoke is a certified sustainability promoter and collaborator by SPSC Council UK. He is a resident conservation scientist and researcher at Nakumba University, Uganda. He is United Nations Environment Programs and Partnership for Disaster Risk Reduction on Nature-Based Solutions. Taddeo is a volunteer global chair for human-wildlife conflicts mitigation and crop protection at Global Sustainability Futures Network, that is GSFN, in London, United Kingdom. Dr. Taddeo, please take the stage, and without further ado, let's commence this invigorating exchange of ideas with everyone. Over to you, Dr. Taddeo.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Dr. Taddeo Rusoke. I'm a senior conservation scientist and livelihoods expert from Uganda, but I do most of my work in East and Southern Africa. So I'm pleased for this invitation to speak to the delegates who are gathered to attend today's G20 Maker Summit. And I would really like to appreciate Anna for inviting me to be part of this gathering and sharing my views from East Africa. Yeah, I bring you warm greetings from Uganda. Yeah, those who have not been to Uganda, Uganda is found in East of Africa, actually the Pearl of Africa. And we welcome you to visit Uganda anytime. Thank you. So I think we can go straight into the presentation. But I'm delivering a talk on sustainable agriculture and food security. This directly speaks to Sustainable Development Goal number 2 on no hunger. Like I've already been introduced, my name I'm Dr. Taddeo Rusoke by PhD. I'm a senior conservation scientist, livelihoods expert, and a research fellow. Yeah, I would like to connect with the global community, and those who would like to join me later, that is my email, taddeorusoke@gmail.com, and I'm on +256 782 11672. I'm delighted to deliver this speech, which is in form of a PowerPoint, to the delegates who are gathered today at the G20 Maker Summit in New Delhi, India, and I know most of us are online, and I'm also online from Uganda. If you could move to the next slide, I'm highlighting some of my core partners or partnering organizations whom I work with in my sustainability and livelihoods work, both here in Uganda, the United Kingdom, and Southern Africa. So to be precise, I'm the executive director for Wildlife Clubs of Uganda, apart from teaching at Nkumba University, and I partner with the El Shameya Conservation Center in Naivasha, Kenya, the Uganda Wildlife Authority here in Uganda, Inside Africa Safaris, which is a tours and travel company here in Uganda, the Global Sustainable Futures Network at the University of Central Lancashire in the UK, the African Wildlife Economy Institute. This is a think tank at Stellenbosch University in South Africa. I also partner with the Uganda Wildlife Education and Conservation Center here in Entebbe. Nkumba University, I already mentioned, that's where I work as a senior conservation scientist. And I also partner with the African One Consult, which is a biodiversity research consulting company, to do most of my work or to make contributions towards the global sustainable development goals. And in the next slide, I will try to briefly talk about what are sustainable development goals. I know all the delegates who are gathered here today, you know what these goals are. Basically, this is a global agenda for sustainable development. For me, I prefer to call it a call to action, so that each one of us, in whatever way is possible, we can make a contribution to the goals. The goals are 17, and the gist of our today's presentation, as requested by the conference convener or my moderator, is to speak about zero hunger. Zero hunger is sustainable development goal number 2, and that will be my topic of discussion today. Next slide. Yes, I took much interest to get some global statistics about hunger across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it is true. Some people are hungry, and we need to take action, especially to support Sustainable Development Goal number 2 on zero hunger. So globally, about 345 million people across the world face food insecurity, and that is as per the World Food Program 2023. 811 million people go to bed without a meal. Okay, so when you look at the global population, we're almost hitting 8 billion, but out of these, at least 811 million people across the world, as of 2022, that is according to the World Vision, go to bed without a meal. This is so frustrating, and we need to take action for the goals. 10% of the world population is hungry. Generally speaking, that is according to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization as of 2023. And 2/3 of these people who are hungry are women. Okay? Are women. And most of these people, the 10% of the world who are hungry, 80% of them live in climate-prone areas. So you realize that climate change is also an accelerator for hunger, or call it famine. Now, 16% of India's population are undernourished. That is according to the World Food Program, and I specifically picked out India because I was invited to speak from India. So the main cause of hunger around the world is poverty. Poverty is escalating hunger, and we shall look at this into details. And 7 of the world's most hungry countries are found in Africa. So Africa, we need to wake up and take some action to end hunger across the world. Now, that said, how can sustainable agriculture fill the gap? Okay. You and me, we need to seize every opportunity to produce food, but produce food in a sustainable way. No matter what size of land you own as an individual, conservation agriculture, which is also more or less similar to regenerative agriculture, and it also encompasses aspects of urban farming, especially when we are looking at the issues of addressing hunger or immediate hunger. We can think about short-term crops. So the conservation agriculture provides us with an opportunity to grow food sustainably, as we shall be seeing in the next slides. And it is very important that you don't take any excuse, say that, no, for me, I don't have enough land. No, it's not about enough land. Each one of us can embrace conservation agriculture to address the challenge of food security. Now, I like talking about my contribution as an individual as part of inspiring action for others also to get involved and help your communities where you come from and be change makers within your community, since we are gathered here today to speak at the G20 ChangeMaker Summit. So be the change you would like to see in the society. And here we'll try to highlight a few of my contributions. As a senior conservation scientist and lecturer, research fellow and consultant, I developed a model which I'm calling BCFAM. And this is the buffer crop farmers model. The buffer crop farmers model is a model designed for farmers who live around protected areas across the world. And this model guides farmers on how to grow crops which are not damaged by wild animals, hence securing the staple crops which they feed on. So this is maybe a topic for discussion some other point, but I wanted to highlight this. And the model has proved to be very effective here in East Africa among farmers who are living near protected area to enhance both coexistence, strengthen livelihoods, and also promote nutritional income and food security among farmers who are living by protected areas across East Africa. This model can be replicated in Asia and the other setups where we are having issues of farmers losing their crops, hence resulting into food insecurity. Then, as the executive director for the Wildlife Clubs of Uganda, we work with over 1,200 plus clubs across the country, and we're involving these in backyard farming. You have a school, you can set aside some land, even if it is behind the school, even if it is somewhere, and you set aside this land to do some backyard farming using organic manure. We are doing this in schools across Uganda, and this type of work can be replicated across the world. Well, producing enough food for the population, we must address the challenge of climate change. With this, I do some amplification. I amplify some messages for the United Nations Environment Program and the Partnership for Disaster Risk Reduction as a nature-based solutions ambassador. Yeah, one of my videos is available online, and any one of you could look out for this video to see what actions we are doing as individuals. I've already been introduced as a global chair for human wildlife conflict and crop protection, and last year I was awarded on this very work which I'm doing here in East Africa with a platinum medal from the Sustainable Promoters and Collaborators Network in the UK. So, as a visiting research fellow and coordinator at the African Wildlife Economy Institute at Stellenbosch University, South Africa, I'm directly looking for food livelihoods option. Okay, apart from people growing crops, what else can we do? So we are trying to see how people can harness game meat, add value to game meat, and use it as a food alternative. We are saying we are addressing hunger. So addressing hunger will not only be addressed through growing crops, but we can also look at how to add value on game meat and improve the value chains. And this is what I do with the African Wildlife Economy Institute. Then, like I also said, conservation agriculture has to be area-based. So we need to scale up interventions, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, to ensure that people are able to conserve the natural environment, because the natural environment provides us with ecosystem services, which help us to become agriculturally productive. And I'm participating in some project at the Imperial College London as an expert informant from Uganda. Then when you are sick, you will not be able to go to your garden. Okay, you will all agree with me. When you are sick, you will not be able to do any productive work. So you realize that the goals feed into one another. And of course, when you are sick, you can even die of hunger. So why am I saying this? As a former research fellow at the Medical University of South Africa, or Sefa Komakato University, I was involved so much in policy work, especially on promotion of health and well-being, by scaling down tobacco use in Africa. This is a project which is ongoing, and we really need to pay much attention to the issues of health and well-being if we must feed our ever-increasing world population. And in the next slide, I will also be talking about, if you can flash the next slide. Yeah, basically, this is one of my contributions, like I said. So we are change makers, and change makers with action. We are not change makers by speaking at conferences. This is one of my books which I launched this year in June, and it is a book about livelihoods. It also speaks to my model on the buffer crop farming and how this model helps farmers to avoid their crops being damaged by wild animals, enhancing food security, nutrition, and also enabling farmers have diversified livelihoods. So this is a book which is available, which I can share with you online at some point, and that is also my contribution to ending hunger, especially among communities who are growing crops by protected area boundaries in Uganda. Next slide. The next slide is talking to financing conservation to achieve food security. And I'm coming up with an innovative approach, which I'm calling the Relive approach. Okay, the Relive approach emphasizes and calls upon the different stakeholders, the different actors who are funding biodiversity conservation to focus on funding research, environmental education, legal compliance and enforcement, promote actions to conserve, and also improve on partnerships for conservation. Because without conservation, we will not be able to address the challenge of food security, as we shall be seeing in the next slide. Yeah, otherwise, I would also like to bring it to your attention that improving food security also directly speaks to, actually is an outcome of sustainable agriculture. I won't take much time on this presentation, and actually have very few slides left. So now here I'm asking a question: can sustainable agriculture improve food security? The question is yes. Like I said, in your schools, in your community, you can start up backyard farming. Okay. Now you will agree with me or disagree with me, but these days agriculture is no longer the backbone of the economy. Agriculture is now the brain of the economy. All of us, even attending this conference, we are either eating something or have eaten something. So it is important to look at agriculture as the brain of the economy, because when the brain dies, then the body has also died. But if you break your spinal cord, you can continue eating, you can continue living. So let us stop thinking about conservation agriculture as a backbone to the economies, but as a brain to the economy. And also, as part of securing and improving livelihoods, we need to see communities, global communities, adopt agroforestry practices. Okay, because when you plant trees that are in line with agroforestry, you are creating a habitat for pollinators. Okay, so this is a livelihoods option, which will ensure that you're having both something to feed on, you are contributing to issues of maybe carbon sequestration, and you're also providing a feasible alternative livelihood to that farmer. Yeah, I'm requesting that we go back to the presentation. You are moving away from the presentation. Then this is a call to action to all of us who are attending this summit, and take this message home. Let us act in favor of sustainable development goals. We can grow short-term crops such as vegetables to feed our families. We can do rooftop gardening. We can practice urban farming by growing vegetables in plastics, old clothes, and others, as highlighted earlier by my colleague from Uganda. We can practice urban farming. Okay, we can develop our own organic manure. We can avoid the use of pesticides and embrace indigenous technical knowledge, whereby we are using the locally available materials to protect our crops from pests and diseases. We can all embrace wetland edge farming, especially where we are living around wetlands instead of degrading them. We can network to create impact, share knowledge and experiences. We need to train the youth, especially with practical skills that work. And this is what we are doing here in Uganda. And where possible, maybe from the policy perspectives, we need to have agricultural insurance schemes for people who are in agriculture. Okay? Can we please get back to the presentation? The chart keeps popping up. Then there is also a need to mechanize agriculture if we are to sustainably conserve our ecosystems and achieve food security. Yeah, the next slide speaks to, can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, the next slide now speaks to implementation of sustainable agriculture. Okay, you are seeing that little girl. That little girl is carrying a tray of eggs. Sorry, is carrying a tray of plants in eggshell flower pots. Okay, these can be little vegetables which grow maybe in a few days. And this very article, for those who are interested in it to know how possible it is to implement sustainable agriculture by using local available materials, this article was published in The Guardian, and I take a disclaimer to say that the photo was taken by Niels Adler. So this is one of the ways which I try to highlight. And in the next slide, I'm trying to show you that even when you're having a limited space of land, next slide, even when you're having a limited space of land, you can grow vegetables for your own home. You can grow vegetables for your family, and maybe those of you who live in gated communities, you can grow vegetables in what we are calling rooftop gardening. So you see there is this gentleman who has put a ladder and is tending to his vegetable garden atop his family house. So this is very important, and this work has been published in some of the prominent papers, like I said. And rooftop gardening is really blooming here in Kampala. This picture is from Kampala, and this is a farmer who is trying to do some rooftop gardening on top of his home. What does this mean? You are being agriculturally productive in a very limited space. You are able to feed your family, your children will not be malnourished, and yourself will not lack something to feed on. And eventually, you can sell the surplus of these vegetables to the nearby markets to raise income. Thank you. Next slide. Yeah, the next slide is, I was still asking myself, why are people still hungry? Okay. We must raise a red flag against hunger in the world by taking action. Okay. I have already mentioned that the driving cause of hunger is poverty. People have become poor because they have damaged the environment. They have encroached on the ecosystems. They have overgrazed ecosystems and lost their livestock. They have manipulated the environment. They have altered the ecosystems. Okay, they have fragmented the ecosystems, and this is also endangering our ecosystem services. Okay, we need to address conflicts and civil unrest. Like for example, you saw what is happening actually currently in Ukraine. So there is at some extent the global grain crisis. We need to address all these if we must address the issue of hunger and reduce on the percentage of those who go to bed without any food in their stomach. So this is a call to action for all of us to implement nature-based solutions. And for me, the focus here, I think agroforestry comes in handy. Next slide. Yes, achieving sustainable development goal number 2, like I said, speaks to addressing poverty, which is SDG 1, promoting health and well-being. When you're sick, you cannot go to the garden. That is SDG 3. Access to education. People who are educated, they will not damage the environment so much. And also people who are educated, uh, they are able to understand the basic concepts of conservation agriculture. So access to education is critical. We need to promote gender equality because you have seen most of the women are the ones who are going hungry. That is SDG 5. We need to improve water and sanitation so that we don't fall sick and we continue tending to our gardens. That is from the social perspective. But from the economic perspective, we need to provide energy systems which will help us to protect our natural forests, which provide us with ecosystem services that support agriculture. We need to create work and economic opportunity growth so that people are able to buy food. Okay. We need to create industries and infrastructure, especially for both the skilled and unsame skilled, so that people are able to earn and buy food. Because when you look at the issues to deal with poverty, these are the people who are living below two $2.15 per day. We need to address the issue of inequalities. We need to create sustainable cities which can ensure that people are able to work. Then we need to achieve sustainable consumption and production. I always tell people that when you serve a lot of food and you leave it on the plate, you are telling this local farmer to damage our ecosystem by producing more food. So we should avoid food wasting, ensure sustainable consumption and production. We need to address climate change because climate change leads to agricultural failure as well as sustainable agricultural failure. And we need to protect our ecosystems so that we have water for production. We need to manage our land ecosystems so that the land remains agriculturally productive. And to achieve all these, we must we build institutional capacity and also partner for the goals. This is very important. So you realize that here, each goal speaks to another. Okay, each goal speaks to another. So for us to talk about sustainable agriculture and food security, we must equally support the other goals within the framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The next slide is still a call to action. If you can highlight, if you can point to that slide, that is actually the third last. Yeah, and this slide basically what to do or what can we do to end hunger and promote sustainable agriculture. As policymakers, as change agents, we must think critically, think holistically. Let us reflect on the needs within our communities. Okay? For example, I was saying, how many people can afford a meal per day? We have seen some cannot afford a meal per day. They go hungry, okay? So as an individual, what can you do? Use the least available space available to you to grow crops, especially short-term crops. Do something. Don't just sit and wait, okay? Then when we go to our other environmentally focused sustainable development goals, it is critical that we address climate change. It is critical that we protect life below water because that supports the blue economy. At least let someone go and pick some fish and have it for their family and maybe sell the surplus. And at the same time, we need to protect all the ecosystems on land to ensure that all the ecosystem services are available for us to experience all those ecosystem services, maybe clean water, then air, rainfall modification, so that we can remain agriculturally productive. So critical thinking is key in problem solving, and it provides ultimate solutions to address the challenges of food insecurity and how many people go hungry to their beds. Next slide. Yeah, this is more or less the last slide. And I wanted to highlight to the delegates who are attending today's conference that when governments make commitments, we need to track progress. Okay, because previously we have had the Millennium Development Goals, but how much do we achieve? That is a question for all of us. Now we are having Sustainable Development Goals instituted here in 2015, and we are having 19 targets and 15 indicators for the Sustainable Development Goals. So, whoever is in charge, we need to mobilize resources to achieve food security. We need to implement all development assistance commitments made by the different countries to ensure that we address issues of in terms of the gaps and all those inequalities that are hindering the achievement of all these sustainable development goals. We must mobilize financial resources for developing countries, especially those in Africa. That is where the most hungry people live. We must assist developing countries in attaining debt relief. If we must feed an ever-increasing population in Africa, we must envelop in the least developed countries. We must share knowledge, and it is on this note that I would like to thank Anne for inviting me to speak at this particular conference. So we must share knowledge, cooperate with others to create access to science, technology, and innovation. We must promote technologies to developing countries to address issues of food insecurity. And on this other side, you can see what are the indicators to measure each of these targets. For the first one, for the first target, we have government revenue and domestic taxes. If you're talking about implementing all development assistance commitments, we must develop development assistance to least developed countries. If you're talking about mobilizing resources for, can we still please go back to the presentation? I'm finishing up. This is the last slide. If we are mobilizing resources for developing countries, we must look at the foreign direct investment and the volume of remittances which are coming into each country. And if you're going to assist developing countries to attain debt sustainability, let us do debt service. That's an indicator. If we are looking at investing in least developed countries, let us look at the proportion of investments. Okay, the proportion of investment for the least developed countries. Then we fix broadband subscription if it comes to issues of accessing ICT and all other infrastructure. And lastly, sustainable technologies in developing countries will be crucial in achieving sustainable agriculture. You can call it conservation agriculture, you can call it regenerative agriculture, to address the issue of food security. I would like you to take me to the last slide as a close. Yes, and whatever I've said it for God and my country, Uganda. I thank you so very much for this opportunity.